I thought that this rotation was going to be better than it was last year. The rotation last year was better than it was this year. And it's alarming. And look, there is not going to be an MLB team that's going to break over 100 wins. That says a lot about where the league is now and how close these teams are to one another. So, I mean, there's a lot of questions to the New York Yankees and what the Yankees are going to do if Gerrit Cole is not ready for the first round of the playoffs. And again, they might not be. If they win the pennant, they don't have to play in the wild card game. If they're the number one seed, they don't have to play. So that gives Gerrit Cole at least maybe a week to heal up. So they got to hope that they can win out and win the pennant so they don't have to play in that wild card game. And honestly, Cleveland, Houston, Baltimore, all three teams are healthy right now and playing great baseball. And the Yankees, I mean, Orioles are back and forth.
Yeah, they're not very healthy either with the rotation.
Yeah, but I think the Orioles are going to get healthy. I think they're going to have all their pitchers back in a week. So
I worry about them. My fantasy team did not do well this year, but my dynasty guy is Adley Rutschman, and Adley Rutschman I think is playing hurt because his numbers are atrocious since the All-Star break. I think he's like one of the worst hitting catchers in baseball right now.
His girlfriend, I mean, she's a pretty good track and field runner.
Look, he does well.
That's probably why they've had to call up a lot of their other kids too.
If you see the first half of the season, he was the best catcher in baseball, and something's wrong with him, and he's gritting it out, toughing it through it in much the same way I think Cole will too. I know you say you won't play him in the first round. I don't think that he'll allow that. He might only go 5 innings max, or have like a 60 to 75 pitch count type of a deal going for him, at least early on in the playoffs. That they can't not use him, and he's not the type of guy, as you know, that Cole is just going to demand the ball. He's an old school guy who wants complete games. That he learned from Verlander. That's the guy that you want to have on the mound. Hasn't been hurt before this year, so he got hurt. When you come back, sometimes you come back too early. Your body's not in the right shape. You're seeing it right now. We just got to hope and pray that he can get healthy in time.
He's been the best. He's been the best Yankee pitcher in the last 2 months. There's no question that he has been. And the most consistent, because when he came back, he was not pitching well. I think his ERA was at 6.
Yeah.
He brought it all the way down to 3. That tells you how good he's pitched in the last 3 or 4 starts. I mean, Gerrit Cole he's not the Cy Young winner that he was last year, but he's still a quality pitcher, one of the elite pitchers right now in the American League, top 3 in the American League. I still, the Yankees got to decide if he decides to opt out, what they're going to do with him. And if somehow he puts on a clinic and he makes the playoffs and he decides to pitch in the playoffs, he is going to opt out of that contract. And the Yankees got to decide. He's 32, 33 years old next year. He's got 5 years left on that contract. Is he worth the money to invest in? Or you decide if he opts out to let him go, give Soto the money, and then go after another pitcher that's going to become available, free or one of these guys, where you add another lefty in Yankee Stadium. ESPN's Brian Windhorst said that Julius Randle has a very tradable contract that he thinks thinks can be used in a package for a big name player. He mentioned Randle's $29 million salary this season as one of the biggest bargains in the NBA. He proposes that the Knicks could deal Randle for 2 first-round picks in a potential trade for a big name player. Randle also has a player option in 2025 for $31 million, but thinks that his value is much higher than that for other NBA teams. Randle is eligible for a 4-year, $181 million extension in 2 years, but Windhorst thinks that price will be too much for the Knicks to able to pay him. The Knicks gave Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby new contracts this offseason and are expected to give Mikal Bridges an extension when he is eligible for one in October. Man, oh man. Well, I've said this and I'll say it again. I don't need Brian Windhorst or whatever his name is to tell me what he thinks Julius Randle's contract is worth. We all know what it's worth. It's worth being traded. He doesn't fit on this team. They bring in Mikal Bridges. They signed OG Anunoby. Those are your 2 and 3 players. And you have still a good bench that is providing these guys could stay healthy. A good bench that is going to give you points off the bench as well. Julius Randle is a meat player. Julius Randle is not a playoff player. And if you're a Knicks fan, why would you want Julius Randle in this rotation? It doesn't make sense. And I think Tom Thibodeau finally believes that Julius Randle doesn't fit the future of this team and this organization for the next 3 years. Now, Tom Thibodeau signed a 3-year extension, which is obviously going to be added on to this 1 year that he has left. He is there for 4 years. Jalen Brunson is there for 4 years. You have Mikal Bridges that's probably going to sign a 4-year deal. OG Anunoby signed a 5-year deal. Hart signed a 3-year deal, I think, and DiVincenzo signed a 3-year deal. This team, I'm sorry, and obviously McBride signed a 3-year deal last year after they traded, you know who they traded, RJ Barrett. This team is built to play without Julius Randle in their rotation. They need a big man. Mitchell Robinson is the only big man they have on this roster. The Knicks are one of the smallest teams in the Eastern Conference. And when you have to play the 76ers, and you have to play Milwaukee, and you have to play Miami, and you have to play, the Boston Celtics, there's a problem there. There's a mismatch. And Mitchell Robinson, as good as he is defensively, he never stays healthy. The Knicks gave him $60 million a year and a half ago. It was a good deal. And I give Leon Rose a lot of credit because these deals definitely fit for another extended player that they can add and a value player, a superstar center that they can add if they trade Julius Randle. But who? Who is willing to trade for Julius Randle? And if you could trade Julius Randle for 2 first-round draft picks, you're probably trading for those 2 first-round draft picks to be late first-round picks. And who's going to want that? So I know a lot of Knicks fans think that this is going to be easy and Randle's contract fits. It's not going to be easy to move, and it's got to match. And Leon Rose has been really, really good at that. I'm not going to shoot Leon Rose down. He's been really, really good. I mean, the RJ Barrett trade was actually a really good trade. It actually made sense. At first, I wanted to throw up. But OG Anunoby, I didn't watch enough, and I didn't get a chance to see him enough because he played for the Raptors. But when I got to watch him close up and watch him game in and game out. And by the way, the Knicks record with OG in the lineup, I think they were like 27-8. I mean, it's ridiculous. They had like 21 more wins when he was in the lineup. And when they lost OG in the playoffs, they weren't the same team against Indiana. They would have beaten Indiana if OG was healthy. Maybe they beat the Celtics. I don't know. But I'm going to tell you this. Right now, you look at the fact in hand of where the Knicks are. They're a better team than they were last year. They have more depth. They added more depth in the offseason. They added some good young rookies in the draft. They weren't first-round talent, but they added, I think, a good point guard to back up Jalen Brunson. I think Miles McBride is more of a 2, the way he shoots and the way he could defend guys that are bigger than him because he gets low and he plays defense very close up and he puts a lot of pressure on these big guys. So I think McBride can play multiple positions not because of his size, because of the way he plays defense. I just think that this team is not built for a Julius Randle. He is not a good defender. He's an isolation player. Jalen Brunson is probably the best isolation player for the Knicks because he likes to move the ball on the perimeter and he likes to use the players that he has around him. And now that he has 3 of his best friends, and I mean 3 of his best friends because all 3 of these guys were in his wedding party. All 3 of them. Nova guys. Mikal Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo, and Josh Hart. All 3 of these guys were in his wedding party. The Knicks are building this team around one player. And only one player. And that's Jalen Brunson. They do not want Julius Randle to hurt this chemistry, ruin the chemistry of this team moving forward. And OG Anunoby, he fits like a glove. He is the best perimeter defender right now as far as youth in the NBA. And you can see it. He can defend multiple positions. And the Knicks have been looking for a player like this forever. And they couldn't get him. They couldn't get Kawhi Leonard. They couldn't get Paul George. And now these guys are starting to they're starting to fall apart. And even though OG is fighting injury after injury every single year, he's still very young. He's 26, 27 years old. He's hitting his prime. This is the perfect time to go on a run. Now, they need size. And Julius Randle is he's one of maybe 2 or 3 pieces that Knicks could move to maybe bring in, just saying, a Rudy Gobert or a Karl Anthony Towns if the Timberwolves need to pay Anthony Edwards, which they did. So now they have new ownership. They need to move one of these contracts, and they're probably going to need to move it at the trade deadline this coming season. One of those big guys could be available. And I think it would make a lot of sense, especially Julius Randle can help the Timberwolves. He can help them. He gives you the offense, and he gives you what you need that you're going to lose possibly for a Karl Anthony Towns or maybe a Rudy Gobert. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And I could see the Knicks making a big move at the trade deadline to move on from Julius Randle. There was a reason why they didn't extend him. They could have. They didn't want to. He's not getting the 4-year, $180 million contract that he wanted. I'm telling you right now, the Knicks are not going to offer it. They're moving him one way or another. No matter how good of a season he is, how he's playing in this rotation, the Knicks are moving on from Julius Randle.
Yeah, if they're going to need size that badly, there's going to be options available because NBA players, more than any other sport, become more available when you're just stuck in mediocrity. And the NBA, because it's a very top-heavy sport as it is going to have those kinds of players that become. Because you're right, the Timberwolves are a team that fluctuates. They're supposed to be a team of the future, and then they end up being underwhelming. And they finally break out the last couple of years, go to the Western Conference Finals. But there's plenty of those other teams across the Western Conference.
And you're also paying Anthony Edwards. You just gave Anthony Edwards a lot of money. And now you have Karl Anthony Towns making that kind of money. You have Anthony Edwards making that kind of money. Rudy Gobert is making that kind of money. You're going to have to decide. This is, again, the Timberwolves are selling out, but their owners don't have a lot of money. Right. And they're trying to sell the team. And so far, there's nobody. I mean, Alex Rodriguez was interested in buying the team last year.
Right.
That went through. That didn't go through. It's going to be hard to move on from this team. And who wants to take this team when they're in salary hell? I mean, there are great players, but who's going to take the team unless it's a billionaire that's not going to make money for at least a year or two? I'm not saying they're not going to make money because you're going to make money as an NBA owner, but you're going to throw a lot of money away. To buy an NBA team now, you're going to have to spend about $5 billion, $6 billion. That's what the Timberwolves are probably worth now with the team that they have. I'm telling you right now, they're going to have to decide who they're going to move on from. It's either Karl Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert. Any one of those guys would fit like a glove with the New York Knicks.
And who says the Timberwolves are going to be the only team in that situation, too, with the new TV?
Houston.
The other one,
Houston's another.
That's another team that's interesting. Maybe Sengun becomes available because he's been injury prone. He's a younger guy, so the Knicks might have to add a little more in that deal. But who knows? The other team,
Orlando.
I'm talking about the Western Conference right now because I think they have a lot of those fringe types of teams.
The Hawks.
The Hawks are interesting. I mean, they're another team that doesn't have as much size. So I don't know how much they're going to be able to deal because they already traded John Collins last year. So it's going to be one of those things that's tough. Here's a team I would watch out for, too, because they're kind of on that fringe. Maybe it's Sacramento. Would they consider trading Sabonis?
How about the Lakers?
Lakers are interesting. Yeah, definitely a
How
possibility.
about the Lakers and the Knicks making a trade? Anthony, Mr. Anthony Davis for Julius Randle. I mean, I'll tell you this. LeBron made a big mistake even, thinking that, he wasn't a fit over there. And Julius Randle was like Kobe Bryant's boy. And he went to the Pelicans, played well, and then the Knicks made a move, brought him in for a 1-year deal as a free agent. It was a good move by the Knicks. It actually was a very good move. That wasn't Leon Rose, I don't think, bringing him in for the Pelicans, was it?
No,
I don't think it was. So. I think it was the guy in front, the other GM in front of him.
Yeah, Steve Perry, not Steve, Scott Perry. I think it was. Was that Scott Perry? I think in that.
No, that wasn't Scott Perry. Scott Perry was.
You're right. It was. I think. You're right. Leon Rose came in a little bit after that. It was whoever was before that. It was
whoever
in between
made that
Phil
move.
Jackson.
Whoever made that move was a good move, bringing in Julius Randle because he's been a good Knick, and he's really the Knicks have benefited from that signing. but they haven't won anything. The guy doesn't show up in the playoffs, and they need size. And Julius Randle is not adding size to an undersized team. Look at your front. Look at your front guys. Look at your big guys. You have OG Anunoby. Everybody's saying OG Anunoby, defending centers. I mean, come on, guys, stop. Yeah, you don't want OG Anunoby defending centers.
You definitely can't have that, and that's the thing the Knicks have to look at.
And Mikal Bridges, yeah, he's good. He is a great defender, great two-way player. You want him defending a 5? You don't want him defending a 5. You want him defending a 4. You want him defending a 3 if you need be, or OG Anunoby, defending a 2 and him defending a 3. So you want to be a little bit smarter on the way you rotate your team and your roster. It doesn't make sense. And the Knicks know they need size. And now Brook Lopez, there were stories that Brook Lopez might have become available. Milwaukee decided to sign him. And that was a good move by Milwaukee because I know the Knicks were very interested in that move. So now the Knicks are going into the season undersized. It's going to be a problem as the season moves forward because they're going to get tired. And size means a lot in the NBA. Say whatever you want. You can't play small all season long. Look at Miami last year. They had one guy, Bam Adebayo. Once Jimmy Buckets went down, I mean, they were small. They were playing small all season long. It doesn't work. As good as their coach is and as good as the rotation and the way he likes to rotate the team, they didn't have enough depth of size, and that caught up to the Miami Heat.
And there's going to be a lot of those teams still like that available because the Knicks really have to especially consider that because Mitchell Robinson's always injury prone as well. And there's going to be a lot of those teams in the Western Conference because the Western Conference has been fluctuating when it comes to there's no obvious powerhouse teams besides the Denver Nuggets like the last couple of years. Like, yeah, the Lakers did it once. The Clippers have done it a couple of times, but the Nuggets are the only team that's been a consistent top 3 team. Everyone else, the Grizzlies had their run as the 2 seed. Then the Kings had their run as the 3 seed. That's why I mentioned Sabonis. I think he's an interesting one to look out for. Maybe if Portland continues to struggle,
Sabonis is interesting.
I considered it 2 years ago when Indiana.
I think he's an undersized power forward.
But again, he's a lot taller than what the Knicks have, and I think he still could be like he has the skills as a stretch 4, the same skills that Randle.
Same size as Mikal Bridges. I mean, but Sabonis is 6'10", Mikal Bridges 6'9". I mean, they're practically the same size.
Right, but you need multiple of those guys on the court. That's the problem. And that's where I think that it makes it interesting. I would say no to, I know the Pelicans, I know the Zion rumors have been interesting, but I wouldn't do that because he's kind of smaller for his
Williamson's too small.
And he's too injury prone. I wouldn't touch that anyway. You're trying to fill in the role for Mitchell Robinson to try to defend that. I don't want somebody 6'7" doing that kind of thing either. That's also has the same level and a big contract too. The other one,
and a ball hawk who likes to hog the ball.
The other one I would consider too, if the Blazers continue to struggle too, would you consider someone like DeAndre Ayton because you could probably get him at a good price where you don't have to give up much more with Randle. So
you're going to be happy with DeAndre Ayton
better than what they have.
Julius Randle?
No, not its own. The Knicks could probably get more in that deal too because Randle's been a good player. And if Ayton develops to that level of upside,
there's only 2 guys right now, and it's one team. It's the Timberwolves. It's Rudy Gobert or Karl Anthony Towns. They're not going to They're not going to be able to keep both of those guys. It's a fact. After giving Anthony Edwards, go ahead.
I'll tell you, it's not Gobert. They just gave up 5 first-round picks for him, and the Knicks would have no interest because they already have Mitchell Robinson, who's the defensive specialist that Gobert is, and Gobert is an absolute the same non-existent player on offense other than Allen.
You don't need offense. You don't need offense for Rudy Gobert. You need a guy that's a blocker and is going to protect the inside game. And I'm going to tell you this right now: Rudy Gobert would fit like a glove with the Knicks. Tom Thibodeau.
I think they already have that though with Mitch. I think that they want him to be a role player, not a starter.
Actually stays on the court. Rudy
Gobert. I think you said it at the beginning though. I think it's Karl Anthony Towns for a handful of reasons. Number one, he's a stretch 5, not a stretch 4, a stretch 5, and that's going to open up the space for all these wings that they have to go around inside the paint. Bridges likes to dance around inside. Anunoby will stand in the corner. They have this great rhythm that gets clogged up with Randle offensively. And I think it's really offensively that Karl Anthony Towns makes the most sense. Karl Anthony Towns also is CAA, and we know Leon Rose's connections with CAA, and they've been talking about those connections forever. He's his agent. I mean, you can easily connect the dots, but you have that. You get the rebounding from Karl Anthony Towns, maybe not the rim protection. But again, it's about mixing and matching these lineups. You have 6'9", 6'8" at the wings. You have Josh Hart who can guard bigger for the stretch 4s that play out there. You could throw Hart on them. And I think that you have a lot of different lineups. What you don't have is the size lineup that you need, because Randle, it's just not going to fit, and he's not great defensively. He's a big body, but not great defensively. So what you really want is a guy who can stretch the floor offensively and not get in the way.
But
like
you're
a
going to have to
Towns
give
does.
up more than Julius Randle, and he's not.
That's the whole point. That's what Windhorst was saying. He's saying Randle and a couple of firsts will get you the big whale that you want. They're not trading Randle for firsts. They're going to include a couple of firsts and Randle, and they'll get someone on a max contract that's trying to get off a max contract. Hello, the whistles are cat. And I like that you mentioned Anthony Davis. I don't see it happening. I would never say no to Anthony Davis.
That was a team. That was a team he wanted to play for. It was Chicago, Knicks, or LA. That he came out and said that.
Hey, I'll take him.
I'm just saying. and LeBron James, if they start off slow and it's just not working with Anthony Davis, why not? I mean, you do a flip flop. Anthony Davis goes to the Knicks. Julius Randle goes to the Lakers, and maybe that gives them a different style of offense that maybe LeBron James thinks it'll work. I mean, it didn't work when LeBron James was there in the beginning, and that's why Julius Randle's no longer there. I mean, LeBron James didn't want anybody. LeBron James wanted his own team, and that's why a lot of these guys, were traded or let go. And LeBron James, what LeBron James says goes, as we all know, Team USA basketball. Both Florida and Florida State have had disappointing starts to their college football season so far, leading a backlash for both fan bases. After getting blown out by Miami, Florida head coach Billy Napier took shots at Gator fans, saying that the team can't focus on what guys are in their basement are saying about the team. ESPN's Paul Feinbaum calls out Napier for calling out fans when they have bigger problems with their program. Several Gator fans on social media say that Florida should go after Urban Meyer to return as their head coach. Florida State also got blown out yesterday against Boston College, dropping them to 0-2 after finishing undefeated last season. FSU head coach Mike Norvell apologizes to the fans and said it is sickening how this season has turned out after being the highest ranked team in the ACC. Skip Bayless also said that Deion Sanders should get a phone call from Florida State trying to become their next head coach. Norvell should be fired. Well, I don't want Deion Sanders coaching my team. That's for damn sure. There's no way I want. And I know he was a Seminole, and I know everybody wants to sit there and say, well, Deion was a Seminole. I don't care. I do not want Deion Sanders as my head coach over there in Florida State. Not a chance. Now, could it happen? It might. It could. It absolutely could happen. This could be the final year at Colorado, and then he'll, right off to the sunset after his son goes over there to the NFL and fails. Both of his sons fail in the NFL. And he is not going to coach in the NFL because no NFL team in the right mind should hire a Deion Sanders, especially what he has done in the past year in a Division I team in a conference that, let's be honest, isn't that good. Okay. Now, they played against good teams. They did. They played USC and they almost won, but they didn't. They played against teams last year where at one point they were 3-0 and then just lost like 7 games in a row.
And they also blew a 21-point lead to Stanford.
And that's another thing. Honestly, what's going on with Florida football is pretty simple. They just can't recruit the same players they once could. That's the facts. It's all about recruiting. It's all about this portal that everybody keeps talking about. And if you look at this class of players that they brought in from this past offseason, after losing a tremendous amount, and Florida State lost a tremendous amount of defensive players in this year's draft. I mean, honestly, they lost 2 guys in the first and second round, actually 3 guys in the first and second round. And arguably, all their corners, all their depth defensively are gone. They had to start over. And I just think that I'm not taking shots at Mike Norvell, and I wouldn't fire him. I mean, he had an undefeated year last year. And honestly, they should have been in the Final 14. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care about, Jordan, Travis, or whatever. I don't want to hear it. The fact is that this defense was the best in one of the top 2 in the nation. And they got their butts whipped by Georgia. But guess what? half of the defensive players didn't even play in that game. So I know everybody wants to sit here and say, well, look what Georgia did to them. Georgia should have been in the Final Four. Georgia would have won the national championship last year. This is what's going on right now in college football. And again, you can't change or try to change the wheel right now because the portal is there right now, and these kids are making money. And it's going to take a while for this to change. As much as the NCAA and some of these coaches are going to complain about it, it's just not going to change. And as far as Urban Meyer coming back, Urban Meyer is never coming back. Why would Urban Meyer go back to Florida with all the different things that has happened over the last couple of years? Urban Meyer should stay away from football, hang out with his family, and stay away from bars. Okay? And he is not the same coach he once was. When he was over there in Ohio State, that was at the tail end of his greatness. And I'm not telling you or even taking a shot. I like Urban Meyer. I thought he was a great coach. He's been very successful in college football. So was a lot of guys. And you go into the NFL, you fail. I mean, it's just like saying Bill Belichick. Oh, I would love to see Bill Belichick coach college football. Maybe he's not good with youngsters. Maybe he's not good with dealing with these young guys coming in and hanging out and going to raves and parties. I don't think Bill Belichick can handle that. Saban's a different cat. He's a different guy. He demands respect. Bill Belichick, I'm not saying he doesn't demand respect, but he demands respect in a different way. So I think with coaching, coaches are losing their authority now. All of them. It's not the same. Look at Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders goes over there to Colorado and takes 63 guys in the portal. Practically drops all these players go into the portal and leave him, and he brings in 63 of his own guys. And half of the guys don't even like him. Half of the guys don't even like him. And then his sons are, sticking up for him. And then other players are sticking up for him. And not many, let me tell you, because I've heard there was about 10 or 11 players that couldn't stand Deion Sanders because he's a favorite. He accepts favoritism, and he likes certain players, including his sons. So I think it has a lot to do with the coaches losing authority now. I think it has a lot to do with the portal. I think it has a lot to do with money. I think it has a lot to do with the TV deals that these, obviously these teams are making now. And now with this tournament of 12 teams, it's going to change a different outlook. And I know everybody's going to sit here and they're going to say, well, how do you think it's going to change? Well, it's simple. You don't have to go undefeated. You can lose 2 or 3 games and still, by the way everything is set up and the strength of your schedule, you could still make this tournament with 2 to 3 losses. And what does that do for college football? It waters it out. It waters it out. And we're going to see that this year. Because I'm going to tell you this right now. There are going to be teams at number 12, number 11, wherever they're ranked by this stupid freaking circle jerk of NCAA idiots. Okay? I'm going to tell you this right now. You're going to see teams that shouldn't be there because, hey, they're undefeated, or, hey, they play 2 teams and they beat those 2 teams and they're in the tournament, so they should be in the tournament. It's going to change everything. It's going to water it down, and then people are going to realize that you don't have to go after 5-star recruits to win. You can go after 4-star recruits and win with 4-star recruits instead of top-end 5-star recruits. And it's going to change everything for college football. You're going to see Boise State win a championship. You might see Boise State win a championship. You're going to see these low undertone teams, conference teams that you never even heard of, make the tournament and actually make noise. It's going to change everything for college football. And I think that it's good for college football. I don't think that Florida and Florida State losing the way they are is any sign of worrisome. I just think that right now, they lost a lot of players in the offseason, and the portal has affected their growth as a college, as a college collegiate, party, where you would think that these players would be, these teams would have a top end players coming. Now, like you see Colorado get because it's Deion Sanders.
Right. And it's interesting with Florida because I actually was a big fan of the Napier hire at the time because I thought he was building.
I like Napier, by the way.
As at Louisiana, he built a good program. They were one of the good group of 5 schools that were consistently good for a while. They made bowl games. I'm not saying they were what Cincinnati was a few years ago when they went undefeated or anything like that, but they built a good program. And Florida knew that they were going to have a lot of recruiting, I guess, disadvantages with Alabama, with LSU, and now especially with Texas and Oklahoma now coming to the SEC, that they had to kind of build their team that way. That being said, I think Napier has also been a bad coach when it comes to the relationships with players and stuff like that, too. Like, I think he's still stubborn in his own ways.
Half of these guys, the only guy, come on, Danny Lanning is probably the only, like, down-to-earth players coach right now as far as big programs are concerned. Go up and down the big programs right now. And I'll say this, and I will say this about Mike Norvell. I've heard he's a very good players coach. These 2 guys are probably the only ones. I mean, if you go and you look at the guys right now, I mean, even Alabama, what's his name again? Who just got the job?
Kalen DeBoer.
He's a hard-nosed coach, I heard. Mm-hmm. I think he's a hard-nosed coach.
Kalen DeBoer is a very similar coach to what I thought Napier would be when it came to a program builder. Because remember, what he came into at Washington was abysmal. Like, Chris Peterson stepped down out of nowhere after he had a good tenure there. They made the playoff 1 year with him when I don't think they should have, but either way, they still built a good program.
You think
there.
Kirby Smart's a nice guy?
I mean, no. I mean, I'm sure a lot of Kirby Smart, I think, has gotten more stubborn. I think he was a nice guy in the beginning, and I think he's gotten more stubborn as he's went along. But Napier, I thought, was going to be that same kind of similar program builder with Florida, and it really hasn't been the same case. And I think at this point, Florida has to try something where they have to evolve into something different. That's why I do think his job is very much at risk. When I go after Urban Meyer, no, I think Urban Meyer, if he were to stay in college football, would have stayed at Ohio State. I don't think he has any interest in coaching again. And if Florida's going to give him that massive contract, maybe he'll go back. But you're talking about a huge buyout. Look at what Tennessee had to deal with, all the coaches they had to buy out over the years. And it just doesn't add up in the SEC. As far as Florida State, Norvell, I think, is a good coach. I think he's been an innovative offensive mind. I think he was a good coach at Memphis when he was there. I like the way he stepped down with Memphis.
He's going nowhere.
In the middle of a bowl game.
He's going nowhere.
I think he disrespected him in that way. But either way, I think he's built enough of a rapport there with Florida State where it could hurt them. Now,
none of those guys are going anywhere.
I think Norvell obviously is going to have to make some adjustments this year in terms of.
I don't think so. I think if he has a bad season, he's going to have another year to figure things out. I don't see Florida State just parting ways with a guy that was undefeated last year. And if he didn't lose his quarterback, maybe he wins the national championship.
Yeah.
So I disagree. I don't care what the fans. And by the way, why don't the fans just shut up? Honestly, seriously, step back and shut up. You think it's easy to coach a team? Honestly. Do you think it's easy to step in when you have a bunch of different personalities coming from different high schools, being the best players in the country, 5-star, 4-star recruits, and think that they're smarter than coach? It's not easy to coach. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Okay. And that's why they make the big bucks. So I understand that the fans have everything to do with obviously the sales and what these guys are getting paid. I also think that the fans just need to sit back and relax and enjoy the show. And if you don't like it, then don't watch them. Don't go to the games. Show the school that you're not behind the team. You're not behind the program. And maybe then these coaches will have to answer that in the offseason. But right now, you're still showing up to the games. You're still selling out games. You're still going to the Florida State Seminole games, and you will continue doing that because you know that this program is still a good program.
Where Florida State has a disadvantage, though, in comparison to some of the other Power 4 conference schools, is the ACC is not bringing as many of those bigger schools. So now them starting 0-2 the way they have this year with Georgia Tech and Boston College being losses, definitely not ideal for the program because they don't have the other strength of schedule to go with that kind of thing. Whereas Florida does, if they somehow turn it around. I don't think they will. I'm not saying they will, but they have been playing those tough SEC schedules for a while. They always schedule a game with Georgia every year. It's their natural rivals. They always schedule a game with Tennessee every year. Being the natural rivals. Florida State doesn't have that kind of thing. So they have to make those kinds of things work for the future. We're seeing these more in college football than ever, these bigger non-conference games being scheduled. We were talking about Kenyon Barner, the Oregon or Ohio State game. They scheduled in the second week of the season 3 years ago. That was one of the bigger games of the season. Oklahoma, we were talking about with Baker Mayfield earlier. Ohio State, that was a bigger thing. Where is Florida State going to schedule those kinds of games? They did it once with Alabama back in 2017, but they really haven't done that kind of thing as much since. And I think the ACC in general, outside of Clemson, has lost a lot of leverage because of that. And even Clemson is now losing those games. They're getting smoked by Georgia and these other Power 5
This is the last year for Dabo Swinney. He is going to get fired at the end of the season. There's no question he's going to get fired. And I think teams are going to look elsewhere. I think Dabo Swinney is probably going to head to the NFL as a coordinator. There's no way he's staying in college football. Nobody's going to hire him for all the things that he has said. I mean, if you go and look at why would any player want to play for him? He's complaining about the portal. He's complaining about the money that players. Would you want to go to Clemson, or you want to go anywhere he goes? It's maybe he's coaching high school football. I mean, he is. He's turned into. Oh my God! How
a fossil?
How about the Jets? You know who I'm talking about, Speedy. He's an offensive coordinator. You know what I'm talking about. Adam Gase. He reminds me of Adam Gase, a guy that was successful as a coordinator, came to the Jets after leaving Miami with some success. He comes to the Jets. And listen, I think Adam Gase is a better coach than Robert Saleh or Bambi Saleh. I think he's better. I think he'd be better as a coach with the roster he has right now with Joe Douglas. But I just think that right now he lost. You could see that he's not getting another coaching job. He's not coaching in college football. He didn't even get even an interview with Alabama, and he has a very close relationship with Alabama and Nick Saban and that organization and that program. They didn't even interview him. So it just says something about Dabo Swinney. I think he's lost his height, and I think he's done. Yeah, I think he's done.
And Carl brings up a good point too. DJ Uiagalelei is a miserable.
He's also old too. He's getting up there in age too.
Yeah, and that's where he started with Clemson at the time 4 years ago. DJ Uiagalelei, who was the number 2 quarterback recruit, only to Bryce Young. And I think they showed.
How old is Dabo Swinney?
And I think they showed a graphic that he was recruited ahead of CJ Stroud at the time too. And now you're seeing how good CJ Stroud was in the NFL.
Got to be closer in his 60s.
And was good at Ohio State. And
54.
Yes, maybe DJ Uiagalelei is not the guy at quarterback. But that's not the premise on the entire team. With the entire landscape of what Florida State has to be as a program to be able to be established even in the 12-team playoff. Now, I know obviously the conference championship is going to get an automatic bid in that kind of thing, but it doesn't show that the ACC is still having a lot of upside when it comes to the other 4 conferences, unless they are going to be able to get more of those harder out-of-conference games.
I think that this losing mentality that Dabo Swinney has is crazy to me, because he won a national championship only a few years back. I guess it's a little bit longer than that now, but it's still, it's been a little while. But at the same time, he said something after that Georgia game that just floored me and floored a lot of people on the internet, that he said you can't look at the score to see how well the team, really did in that game. And I've given that speech to JV football teams that had no chance of making it to 500. That's what you say in losing programs when teams are like it was a great effort, guys. We'll give you a participation trophy later. We're going to have a great time. We'll get some pizza after the game.
That's what they do with Pee-wee.
That's the type of
wins. Yeah.
It is. It sounded like that
for like Appalachian State hanging stuff with Georgia, not Clemson.
Isn't that unbelievable? And I was just floored by it. I think you brought it up in the beginning, Errol. The transfer window is killing Florida schools. They don't have all the NIL money. They don't have to stay. There's all these great athletes in Florida. There's all the 5-star, 4-star guys. It was always Florida, California, and Texas had the top athletes back in the day. And it's still probably true. And Florida guys just aren't going to these Florida schools. I think some of it might have to do with the backwards laws going on in Florida. I think some of it has to do with the fact that, the education system is kind of going down the tubes down there as well, alongside with some of those laws changes. And I think there's a lot of money in the big schools. And if you want to be a good football player, you're really going to the ACC right now. Is that really where you want to go? And I think that you see that happen to Norvell, and he's going to struggle to rebuild that. It's going to take longer, obviously, than people thought it was going to take. And you got to give them more time. They were 13-0 or 12-0 or something like that.
12-0 last year. And Norvell is a good offensive mind. Like, he should have gotten a Power 5 job a while ago.
He's good. I mean, his quarterback's not that good. And
it's just going to take, and Florida is the other one. Napier's in a lot of trouble. I think that's that. I know everyone loves Florida State, but living in Florida, they consider U of F like this, like the Duke of Florida. They think it's like this great school with a great education system. I beg to differ, but that's where everyone wants to go. They don't want to go to Florida State. It's not as good educationally as U of F. And U of F is like the jewel of the state, really. I always loved the Chop when I was a kid. Florida State, they had the Charlie Ward, all those guys when I was younger, and they stuck out more to me than those Spurrier teams with Danny Werfel. But I'll tell you right now, those are the halcyon days. There's a big word for you. halcyon days of Florida football. They're long past that right now. The one and dones, the Jimbo days are gone.
The Texas,
they're losing recruits too.
My Seminoles have been absolutely horrible. Agita is the best, the best way to explain what watching a college football does to me. I mean, in the 90s, my team was, them in Miami were the best. Growing up, and this is the thing, in the 90s, I was a Duke Blue Devil fan, and that's because I was a Bobby Hurley fan. I grew up, I loved Duke, I loved Coach K, and I watched, a lot of championships in the 90s. And then I was a Seminole fan because I couldn't stand Miami. I could not stand watching Jimmy Johnson and that Miami team. I couldn't in the late 80s and in the 90s and early 90s. I couldn't watch. Every year their recruiting class was ridiculous. They had the best players, and I loved when Florida would play them and just pounce on them. But now watching this Seminole team, for 20 years, it's just been just horrible. It's the only time I'm not gonna lie. I mean, obviously, Mr. Crab Stealer. I mean, the Crab Leg Killer. I mean, whatever he is, Mr. Touchy Feely. You know who I'm talking about, Mr. Him. Him winning, Jameis Winston winning, an NCAA championship. That was fun to watch. And then I got to watch my coach go all the way to Texas A&M and choke over there. And just
the second largest buyout in NCAA history. Now.
I call him Tubby. I call him Mr. Tubby.
And now Jameis Winston is backing up a quarterback that also likes to do things with his hands.
Yeah, well, somebody's got to do something with his hands. Speedy, you like that?
That has nothing to do with me.
You don't like to,
has nothing to do with
hang out with Deshaun Watson.
God no.
I would hang out with Deshaun.
Okay.
I try to stay my distance because I'm afraid he's going to want me to use my hands in different ways. I mean, and hopefully not on him. And also Texas. I mean, Texas, there's a lot of money. Texas A&M has a lot of money. Texas has a lot of money, and everybody wants to go there because there's a lot of money being brushed under the tables, as we've been saying. And look, Arch Manning, I was very surprised Arch Manning stayed over there in Texas. I would have went somewhere else. I'd be a starter anywhere else right now, and he looks good. I mean, I watched him. Next year, this kid's going to be spectacular. And I don't know could he go into the draft if he has a good season next year? Because he could.
Yeah.
So I think Arch Manning is going to be the number one pick next year. I think he could very much be the number one pick next year. I've watched the little bits and pieces that I've seen him. I mean, it's garbage time, but there's no reason why. And by the way, what's his name again? Who is the starting quarterback? Quentin Ewers, who everybody says is the best quarterback in this class. He hasn't looked good. So, I mean, how long does Texas have to wait before they say, you know what, let's move Arch Manning into that starting role? And I think Arch Manning, when we did see him, I mean, he had the running touchdown, he had the throwing touchdown. He looked pretty damn good to me. I mean, I think the kid's going to be something special. We know what his uncles did. So, and he's a Manning. So he's a name and a name. I wouldn't be surprised. Is that where the Giants go next year?
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I've seen enough Giants social media posts of that already.
I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. So there are other teams that are going to be intrigued.
Oh, sure.
If the Giants are bad this year, I wouldn't be surprised that they'll be bad.
The Giants are going to be fine. We just re-signed Adoree Jackson.
Ooh.
Everything is fine. The secondary is now solidified. Only weakness left on the team. Now we're good. It's going to be fine.
Oh my God! No, he's not better. He's not going to be the number one pick. Sanders is better. Are you kidding me?
No. Arch Manning is not going to be drafted this year. He's not playing this year unless Ewers gets hurt.
First of all, Sanders stinks. And if you think Sanders is going to be better, I can't wait until he goes into the NFL and he fails. He is going to fail in the NFL. You mark my words. You can book it. He is not C.J. Stroud. He is not any of those guys. That kid is so overrated. Because his last name is Sanders, that's why everybody loves him. And I don't want to hear it. I know Shannon Sharp came out and said that he thinks this kid's going to be good. I disagree. I mean, if you go up and down, some of the analysts are right. They don't think he's any good. They don't think he has the athletic ability like his father did at his position. So I think that as a quarterback, you got to be a completely different beast. And I don't think he has the leadership skills. He doesn't get along with anybody. How is that going to work? How is that going to work? Because we know what Stephon Diggs is doing right now, and the Diggs brothers are doing. This is a quarterback. You're the leader of the team. If your players in the huddle don't trust you, how are they going to trust you when your team needs to get a touchdown at the end of the game, or your team needs to win this game to get to the playoffs or win a Super Bowl? I wouldn't trust them. So I don't know. Sanders doesn't stink. You can book it. You're crazy. Okay.
I mean, yeah, Colorado's problems last year weren't all on him, Keith. I guess that's maybe where you're coming from because their offensive line was really bad and so was their defense. But at the same time, like his comments this offseason are not ideal for him being a professional level quarterback. Like he definitely is going to have to mature, and that probably isn't going to happen anytime soon with his dad as his coach.
That's fine. That's fine. You think he's going to be good in the NFL? Good. Go ahead, draft him. You're a Giant fan.
And maybe he's the first quarterback in this draft, but that doesn't mean like you trust him as a franchise quarterback.
Let the Giants draft him. Go ahead. Draft him.
It's not going to be the Giants. It's going to be the Dallas Cowboys because Deion's going to be the head coach next year.
Who did he play in the first game?
In his first game, he played TCU, who, like Florida State, like after their championship loss, they lost a ton of players.
They're fantastic.
Nobody expected them to be. Team. I mean, they're expected to be better than Colorado, but they weren't supposed to be any good. They were ranked.
Colorado has 63 portal guys. They're supposed and what are they? What did they say? They have like 20, like 15, 20 recruits that were 4.5, 5-star recruits.
Beck is going to be the first quarterback, Keith. There's no way that Sanders is going to go over Beck with Georgia going to be undefeated this year. It's going to be ridiculous.
There's two other guys I would consider the upside for. Two guys that played well for 2 months last year.
He's beaten nobody, Keith. He's beaten nobody.
Fitch, here's two other names I would pay attention to. Is Drew Aller for Penn State, who played well for 2 months last year and then struggled in conference play. We'll see if he does better this year. And the other kid is the Ole Miss kid, Dart, I like too. I think
up and coming. What's a good team that is going to show his talents against this year? Sanders. Who's coming up?
He better.
Give me a team.
They're in the Big 12.
Who do you have coming up that if he plays well, he could start bragging about? Give me a team defensively that's good. That's going to is one of the best defensive teams in the nation. That if he puts up big numbers, then we can start talking and bragging. Because who's he beaten? Yeah, he's beaten nobody. He has beaten no good defense, no top end defense, no top 5 defense. Give me a team right now on his schedule that we're looking forward to. Because to me, that's what's going to sell me about Mr. Sanders. Okay. And that's, to me, it's not about, what kind of car he drives or, how much money he has in his pocket or what kind of endorsements he's getting right now.
I think Kansas State was the highest ranked Big 12 team at the start of the year, or Utah, which both have good defenses. That would probably be their best test.
Okay. When are they playing them?
Utah versus, let's see.
Utah's was ranked number 10 overall, according to the Athletic.
All right. When are they playing Utah?
Utah versus.
When are they playing now? Because I'm going to look at
November 16th. They're at home.
I'll be watching that game. I'll be watching that game. Okay.
And then Kansas State.
As I haven't watched him, and I don't want to watch him because I think he stinks. I think he's overrated. I don't really think he's that good.
And then Kansas State's
That's the only team on their roster that Kansas State was ranked 24th defensively. So those are the two,
yes,
decent
Keith, I don't think he's a first-round draft pick. And whoever drafts him in the first round is making a quality mistake, just like the Jets did with Zach Wilson. Yep, he stinks. You laugh. Good. All right. Listen, Zach Wilson, go look at his number. His numbers his final year as a college player. I don't think Sanders will ever have numbers like that. Okay, let's go. Let's go over there. Let's go over there. Where was Zach Wilson? In his career as an NFL player, he was great. He was the second pick in the first round, and he completely failed. Way better than Wilson. Okay, way better than Wilson. All right.
He won't go as high as him. No way.
Okay. If he does, whoever picks him higher than him is making an absolute catastrophic mistake. Catastrophic mistake. There you go. That's a good word, right? Yeah, I think that's good. Mm-hmm. I think it's good. Hey, Keith, why don't you draft him? You drafted me in fantasy league. Nobody in their wildest dream would. But hey, you want to? I mean, everybody drafted Caleb Williams because we know what a good he
Keith,
is.
Why don't you go become some front office executive for the Patriots because you hate Drake May so much and go draft out Shedeur Sanders.
You like to bring up what I liked about Zach Wilson, okay? And I make fun of Zach Wilson more than anybody. So what are you going to say, Keith? I'm always wrong about my picks. You're the one who kisses friggin' Jeff's butt. All right. I don't do it. And Jeff's been wrong about a lot. A lot. I don't hear you saying anything about Jeff. You sit there because you want to lick his you know what. Why don't you get on your hands and knees and there might be a right or left testicle that might be cleaned off for you. It could be good.
Keith wants to make a friendly bet with me.
Those
Keith,
nuts.
All right. I don't know if Keith is able to actually enunciate his bet, but I'll tell you right now, if the bet is about Shedeur Sanders being a top 2 pick, I'll take that bet right now. I don't know what I want you to do, but it'll be probably pretty stupid, Keith.
I don't think I don't think there'll be a quarterback drafted in the top 10. I don't think a quarterback's going to be drafted in the top 10 this year. I don't.
Pickett went what, like 1920 that year?
Sweetie? He wants to bet you. He wants to bet you.
Which year you're talking about? 2 years ago?
What? When they didn't think anyone was going to get drafted, and it was Kenny Pickett was the only first round pick.
Yeah, he was 22nd.
He was 22nd. Yeah. I remember.
Yeah.
It was the only quarterback.
I don't know if it's going to be that bad, but
all right.
I'll
He
tell
says
you.
Sanders is going to be a top 5 easy.
I thought he said top 2. Top 5, I'd be surprised as well. I'd be surprised. I think there's a chance he goes top 10 just because of name recognition and all the stupidity out there. But I'll take that bet, Keith. Keith, right now, I'll tell you right now what I want you to do if I win the bet, when I win the bet. When you call up, I want you to actually talk about what we were just talking about on the show. That's all you have to do. If I win the bet,
because Jeff
it has
always
to be
nice.
what we were talking about.
He's a lot like Jeff. When Jeff says something and he's right, he'll brag about it. When Jeff says something wrong, I never said that. I never said that. And then what Jeff loves to do on this show is say that I said something when I never said it. And I never said that. Oh, yes, you did. No, I did not. So, but he'll try to nitpick it and try to find something that I said and say I was wrong. Did I like Zach Wilson? Yeah, I did. I did like Zach Wilson. Was I wrong? Yeah, you are wrong about things, but I was right about a lot of other players. So I'm not going to sit here and say I was always wrong. So to me, I never thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be any good, and I don't think he's any good. Okay, I really think we're going to know what Trevor Lawrence is in 2 years because that contract that he got is not a good contract, and it's going to catch up to the Jaguars. I've said it. We know who's good, and we know who's okay. I think Trevor Lawrence is mediocre. I think there are quarterbacks like C.J. Stroud. We'll know what C.J. Stroud is at the end of this year. This is his sophomore year. There's going to be a lot of tape on him. Teams are going to know how to defend against him, and we will see. We know what Patrick Mahomes is because teams have tape on him, and they still can't stop him. So, and the same thing goes beyond other players too. Caleb Williams, he might have a great year, and then next year he might have an off year. We don't know what he's going to do. If he has 2 back-to-back years, then we know he's for real. We know what Andrew Luck was. So, and you like to tell me that Andrew, if you're going to take Patrick Mahomes as Hall of Fame, their numbers are identical. And you're going to tell me that right now Patrick Mahomes is on your echelon of top quarterbacks of all time? That doesn't make sense. How do you even sell that?
And Keith, you did say that he'll be the first quarterback drafted. That's definitely possible. That doesn't make it a worthwhile pick for a franchise quarterback.
Nobody said that C.J. Stroud isn't good. Nobody. I'm the one. Just so you know, I was one of very few people that said C.J. Stroud was the best quarterback in that class last year. I don't know if you remember that, but I did say that. Speedy remembers that. I said it. So, and I was wrong about other players. But I was right about him. But nobody gives me credit for that. And he went down as the greatest rookie quarterback of all time. So what does that tell you? But that doesn't mean he's going to put up those numbers this year. That the teams know about him. And his weapons are even better than he were last year. I bet you his numbers are nowhere close to they were last year. I think his numbers are going to be down this year. I wouldn't say nowhere close. I'm sorry. That's bad. I think that, what did he throw last year? What was his numbers? I know he threw what, 7 interceptions or 6 interceptions or something of that magnitude.
23-5, 4,108 yards, 100.8 rating.
I think he throws between 36 and 39 this year. I think he throws more interceptions, and I think he throws more touchdowns because he has more weapons. So I think he had 25 touchdowns last year.
Yeah.
I think he throws 30 touchdowns.
23.
I think he throws 30 touchdowns and about 12 to 13 interceptions. That's what I think he throws. And I think he throws less yards.
He's good, man.
I love CJ Stroud, but I think teams have a lot of video on him, and teams know what he's strong at and what he's not. Dude, the Jets, did you watch him against the Jets and what the Jets did to him? They made him run to his weak side. They made him throw to his weak side, and they threw him off. Stroud got hurt in that game too at the end of the game because the Jets put too much pressure on that. What the Jets did is they brought in a safety. They brought a safety up, and they hit a linebacker. They brought Quincy Williams up, and they were running blitz. And by the way, Robert Saleh does not like to run blitz packages. There were more blitzes in that game than they ever had in any of the games throughout the season. And they threw CJ Stroud out because he had no idea it was coming. So again, teams have video on him, and they know what he doesn't like, and they know what he likes. So studying is studying. That's what makes Aaron Rodgers so special, because no matter how much video you have on him, it really didn't matter. I mean, he would just stand at the line of scrimmage. He'll call you off sides. He'll do this. He'll flip the play. He'll flip the rotation of the running back. Peyton Manning was great at that too, by the way. He was really, really good at that. So just not good in playoffs. Tom Brady with the short passes and all that other stuff, it was different. You all think Chase is going to get paid this week? No. I do not.
I personally don't. I actually took Garrett Wilson over Chase in our all-22 draft because I don't think he's going to play for a couple of weeks. I really think that he's going to hold out like long term.
I think he misses 2 weeks. I think he misses the first game and the second game. I think the Bengals think that they can win without him, with Higgins and the guys that they have over there, and I think they can too because the schedule is who's their first game?
Patriots.
Yeah, their schedule is kind of easy in the first 2 or 3 games, so I don't think they really need him. I think they'll call his bluff, and he's just losing money, so it doesn't look good for him either. So eventually he wants to play. These guys, they say whatever you want. It's all about the money, but they like to play. They're competitive. So
yeah, I think they miss one game and he makes a statement, and then you realize, I have to play with Joe Burrow again. I don't think it'll be like as down as something.
I think they're fine. I think I don't see Chase signing the contract early this week. I think he will be sitting out unless he decides, hey, you know what, I want to play. That could happen.
They're historically cheap over there in Cincinnati too, so it's going to be one of those pinching pennies things. It might take a while, but he's going to stay with them. Like, it just doesn't make sense for them for not.
Why wouldn't he stay with his best friend? His guy and Joe Burrow is there. He knows he has a chance to win a Super Bowl as long as that guy is healthy. So, and that's the only guy right now that, as far as I'm concerned, besides Aaron Rodgers, we have to see Aaron Rodgers there. He's the only guy that can beat Patrick Mahomes every time they play. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has 1 win against Joe Burrow. One win against Joe Burrow, and he barely won. So, and in the playoffs, go look at the records. And Joe Burrow beat him in Kansas City, and Joe Burrow beat him at home. It doesn't matter where Joe Burrow plays. Cold, warm, hot, rainy, snowy, it doesn't matter. And ask Josh Allen how good Joe Burrow is in the snow. That's it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, who do we have on the show?
All right, returning to the show at 8 o'clock, we have a 9-year NFL linebacker, ex-linebacker Chris Draft, played for 6 different teams.
Oh, I love Chris.
It'll be the 3rd time for him on this show. And then returning to the show, he'll be on at 8. And then returning to the show at 9:30 is our crazy Vikings friend, Mr. Bursick.
Oh, he's Bursick. He's off. He's ready to take a dump.
Yep, he'll be ready with all his Jets and Aaron Rodgers shots. And here comes the Sam Darnold legacy year.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this. Anyways, thank you. We're going. Good night. Farewell. Have some cashews. Good night.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.